Transmission media is simply the way data is transferred from one place to another, such as from sender to receiver. Wired transmission, also called guided media, can come in different forms. In this video, we will look at twisted pair cabling and fiber optic cabling. When using wired transmission media, one network is physically connected to another using a set of wires. Let's start by looking at twisted pair cabling. This cabling is made up of various insulated wires which are twisted in pairs around each other. The reason why pairs of wires are twisted is to reduce crosstalk and electromagnetic interference. Crosstalk is electrical interference from the other wires found within the cable. Electromagnetic interference is when there is an electrical interference from an external source, such as a strong electrical current from a welder or even lightning. There are two versions of twisted pair cable: shielded twisted pair, called STP, and unshielded twisted pair, which is UTP. This picture shows an unshielded twisted pair cable and is most commonly used in Ethernet networks, like the type of network in your classroom. We will talk about the term Ethernet in a later video. Shielded twisted pair cables are used in a particular type of network called a token ring. Unshielded twisted pair is by far the most common cable type in use today. The most common UTP cable has 4 pairs of 8 wires. There is special UTP cabling called backbone cabling, and we'll look at the use of this later. But this type of cabling has up to 25 twisted pairs in one cable. For the more common 4-pair cabling, each pair is twisted with a different number of twists per inch to help eliminate magnetic interference from adjacent pairs and other electrical devices. The tighter the twisting, the faster data can travel. However, there is a greater cost per foot. The wires are connected to the computers using a special plug, an RJ45 plug. Unshielded twisted pair cabling comes now in 7 categories. Cat 1 is used for telephone wires, Cat 2 is used for token ring networks, Cat 3 to 6 are used in Ethernet wired networks. Cat 3 will have a data transmission rate of 10 base T, which means that it has 10 megabits of data per second traveling over 100 meters. Cat 5 has more twists, so it can run at higher speeds and for greater lengths. Its transmission rate is between 10 to 100 base T. That is up to 100 megabits of data per second traveling over a distance of 100 meters. Cat 5 is used for backbone cabling. Backbone cabling is not what is in your classroom, but could well be in the server room. This cabling is used to link floors in a building or link buildings, and is used for major network traffic. Cat 5 has been improved upon with a new cable called Cat 5e. This has a transmission rate of 1000 megabytes per second, or 1 gigabyte per second. Nowadays, the type of Cat cabling going into networks is Cat 6. This does 1 gigabyte of data per second over 100 meters. It differs from category 5e in that it has better resistance to electrical noise and external interference, also known as crosstalk, due to the pairs of wires being physically separated from each other. Finally, the very latest is Cat 7, which does 10 to 100 gigabits of data per second. I would imagine right now your head is spinning with numbers. Just make sure you are aware that there are 7 categories. You should know the transmission rate and uses for Cat5, Cat5e and Cat6. The reason why unshielded twisted pair is so popular are for the following reasons. UTP is used by the Ethernet networking protocol. It's the cheapest form of cable available for networking purposes, and it's used over a short distance of just under 100 meters with a transmission rate of between 10 and 100 megabytes per second. It is easy to install and easy to work with because the cable is flexible due to being of a small diameter of 0.43 centimeters. The cable is attached to an RJ45 connector and no grounding is needed. The downside to unshielded twisted pair is that it is only effective up to 100 meters before a repeater is needed to replicate the signal. UTP is susceptible to electrical interference and it is not good for use between buildings. Finally, it is not a secure means of transmitting data from a source to a receiver. Shielded twisted pair is similar to unshielded twisted pair in that the wires are twisted together, except each pair has an insulating coat of copper braid and a thin wire called the drain wire, which allows easier connection to the ground where wires are connected. The extra covering protects the wires from electromagnetic interference leaking out of the cable and is able to transport data over a greater distance than UTP cables. STP cables are still used in Ethernet networks, but are for faster data rate Ethernets and used for high-end applications. Fiber optic cable is made up of extremely thin strands of glass or plastic bound together in a sheathing, also known as a jacket. Transmission of data signals is with light beams. These high-intensity light beams are generated by laser and are conducted along the transparent fibers. These fibers have a thin coating called cladding, which effectively works like a mirror, stopping the light from leaking out of the fiber. The much smaller diameter of a fiber optic cable makes it ideal when there is no room for bulky copper wires. Fiber optic cable and associated telecommunication devices are more expensive to buy and install than their twisted pair wire counterparts, although this cost is decreasing. Fiber optic cables are fragile and care needs to be taken when laying fiber optic cables. It should be considered the minimum distance fiber optic cabling can be laid is 90 meters. This makes Cat cabling a better option in most cases for LAN networks within buildings. Fiber optics would be used for high-end transmission over long distances or in areas where there is a high electromagnetic interference, EMI, as fiber optic cabling is not affected by this. Fiber optic transmission is done in one of two ways, either multi-mode or single mode. In multi-mode there are multiple paths of light with different frequencies or wavelengths travelling through the cable. The light carrying core in multi-mode is up to 50 microns, which is about half a millimeter. Multi-mode fiber can transmit data over a shorter distance than single mode. Multi-mode cables are plagued by excessive signal weakening, called attenuation, and by dispersion. Dispersion is the spreading of the signal, so that different parts of that signal will arrive at different times to the destination. It is for these reasons that multi-mode fiber is limited to about 500 meters. Single-mode fiber transmits data using a single light beam between 5 to 10 microns, about the width of a human hair. Single-mode fiber can transmit data over a much longer distance, up to 100 kilometers. The light source must be perfectly aligned with the cable. Single-mode products usually use lasers, which make it more expensive. Thus light reflections decrease, so less attenuation. This method has higher bandwidth, that is, more data can be passed using this method rather than multimode. Single mode is used by schools, colleges, universities and media companies. Fiber optics is preferred over wireless networks for several reasons. Wireless transmission can be intercepted, but with fiber optics it is harder to intercept. Wireless signals can be weakened due to physical barriers or environmental conditions. Therefore, sensitive data may be corrupted. Fiber optics is far less susceptible to this. Wireless has a limited radius and will require repeaters to cover a wider area. Where communication links are over 90 meters, then fiber optic is better suited. There is no public access on a fiber optic as they are buried. Finally, bandwidth on fiber optics is generally better if large files are being transmitted. However, high-end wireless technology standards are comparable to fiber optic transmission rates. That concludes our talk on wired transmission media. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.